Hi, Tivona. Thank you so much for being here with us on Independent Woman with Wine. Speaking of wine, what are you drinking, my friend?
I am drinking sangria, the red
Oh,
sangria. Oh, I love it.
I love your glass.
Thank you.
It's super pretty. I am having a watermelon sangria.
Nice.
Very sweet, very refreshing.
Yes,
I'm like, she's gonna be drinking sangria. I want to match with her.
right on.
Yeah. So, Tivana, did I say your name right?
It's Tivana.
Tivana? Okay.
hmm
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I am Tivana Elliott. I'm also known as Lady V. I am a spiritual release coach and an author consultant as well. So I help people or individuals to actually write their story and transform their lives at the same time. And that's what I like to say. So you can actually tell your story and transform your life at the same time. And so it's like a bonus. And then I am a lupus advocate. I am, excuse me, I'm an evangelist. So I wear many, many, many hats. And my goal is to teach individuals how to roar in their greatness. And so that's who I am. That's what I do.
That's my goal. Every time I talk to somebody over this, some people get a little bit nervous, and I'm like, no, no, we're gonna have fun. I know we don't know each other in person, but let's two friends catching up, talking about life, drinking wine, right? So
Exactly.
that's awesome. Um, uh,
Exactly.
so can you take us back in time a little bit when you were 15 and you told me you left home? What pushed you to make that decision, to come to that?
Right. So I was molested at 8. I was being molested at 8. And at 10, I started to run away. Um, I was running from the monsters that was haunting me, which is the monsters that was in my home. And I kept trying to run and run and run to the point that I just was like, you know what? I'm just over this. And so I was searching for something. And so a friend, he was like, come on, like I'll save you. And so I thought that's what was gonna happen, that he was gonna save me. At 15, I'm just trying to get away. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought he was gonna save me, and he just didn't. And the monster still kept finding me and finding me. And so I just was over it. And I just was like, and then I found myself living in the streets because then after I went back, I caused so much hell. That's what I'm saying. I caused so much hell that they actually just was like, you know what, get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was out there in the streets, I thought I knew what I was doing, how I was doing it, but I found myself to be a madam. And I found myself to be a madam because I understood that there was some girls out there that was just like me, but not as strong as me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for somebody to rescue and save them too. So we were all in the same category. We were all in the same bracket where we were being outcasted. We were being thrown out. We were being demised for who we were.
Uh-huh.
And some of them turned to drugs, but that wasn't my thing. I was too strong for that, and I didn't. That's not what I wanted to do. I smoked weed, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like I had to protect them, and I gained my strength, and I found friendship in them as well. But it was just that was the life that I was living because I was running from the monsters that was haunting me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking back at this time, what would you say was the biggest lesson, that you took from that time?
If I could go back and tell my 15-year-old self something, it would definitely be to learn how to love me. I took from that it was okay to not be okay, but I learned how to be strong.
Yeah.
I learned how to be a survivor. I learned how to be a warrior. And I learned that no matter what I went through, I was strong enough to get through it.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have had to be, not at that age. You know what
No,
I'm saying?
no. And then you said like if you could talk to the 15-year-old you, if only we could do that, go back in time and tell ourselves, hey girl, either keep up or don't go on that path, like if only we
Exactly.
could do that. And I
Exactly.
think so unfortunately for not like a lot of women that I talk to, they don't start seeing their value and looking back and think, wow, I was so strong. Oh, look what I went through and look where I am. We don't start looking at ourselves with those eyes until not late, like I'm 46. And only recently that I'm like, that I look back and I'm like, wow. I moved from Brazil when I was 21 to America. No English, didn't know anybody, and I
Mm,
just did. If it was today, heck, I'm afraid. I went to California and I only went because I had relatives there. And then I moved back to Massachusetts just because I have family here. I
right.
knew I was moving to a whole other country. Didn't know English, didn't know anybody. So I look back, I was like, wow, that was crazy. But and that's why I'm doing this podcast, even hoping that some young girls would watch and like see where amazing woman like you, where you are and everything you went through. I'm like, I'm gonna be okay. You
Yep.
know, we just gotta keep on going, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And we have to because at the end of the day, it's kind of like sometimes we feel like we're not going to make it. That's where I was, especially at 15. Everything bothers you at 15.
Oh my
You
God.
know, oh,
We
you
feel
just
emotions so strongly, right? When you're a teenager, everything, it's the end of the world.
the end of the world. And that's how I felt like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world.
I
I don't know how
know.
to get through this. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But we laugh at it now because we realize that, wow, we were emotional then, and sometimes we are emotional even at this age, because I'm 48 and I just turned 48 in July. And so I get what you mean when you say that we look back and we're like, oh, wow. Because that's how I did. I look back and I was like, wow, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was back then,
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
of course, at the age of 15, we're all just
I
all over the place and crazy, and everything is, and so now it's time for us to really just teach our children that, first of all, they have somebody that they can depend on
yeah,
and that they can be strong through it, and they don't have to be silent because we were growing up in that era. We grew up in that era where what happens in this house stays in this house. So
yeah,
we wasn't really allowed to have a voice. We wasn't allowed to say things. You stayed out of grown people's conversations. You whatever happened in their house, you just stayed in that house. You didn't talk about what was going on. You didn't discuss other people's business like that. They could, but you
yeah,
bet not.
yeah, exactly. It's so funny that you said that. So yesterday I went to one event. It was a women's gathering. And towards the end, the person who organized was asking questions like, do you think it's a bad or worse for young girls now? The way that
Mm,
I see, I feel like woman has so much more voice now than
yes,
back. But that was
exactly.
girl. I don't have children of my own. I do have a
Me
stepson,
neither.
and I have children that I take care of. So I maybe I don't look with the eyes of a mother, you know. But this girl over there, she has a young daughter, and she's like, she saying that she fears for her daughter. She does not feel, and I'm like, I get that, but we have so much more voice. We have so much more outlets that we can actually express ourselves, and we can
Mhm,
actually speak up when something is wrong, which
exactly.
before we couldn't.
We was not allowed to do that.
Oh
We
no.
would get the brakes beat off of us if we, if we spoke up or said something, because back then it was back talking. It was sassing. It
Oh
was, being disrespectful. Where you're right. These days they have so much. I mean, I learned from the Generation Z, like this Gen X and Gen Z. I give it to them because they are bold. They're able to just be free to be who they are. And
I
you know
know,
what I'm
right?
saying? And
Yeah,
they're teaching us a lot. And even though they look at it like, oh, we have it so hard. Well, we thought we had it hard too. You know what I'm saying? And and the generation before them thought they had it hard
yeah.
too.
Oh
And the
yeah.
generation before them too. So it's a cycle.
Every generation gonna think that they're having hard, you know? Yes. And we're always gonna be like, nah, you don't have as bad as I did, you know? Like it's exactly like that. Yes.
Exactly, because when we were talking, and we were saying how bad it was and things like that. The generation before us was like, "Well, try walking 15 miles in the snow," and you know,
It's exactly like that. Oh my.
So
Yeah. Cheers, my friend. I'm having so
cheers,
much fun doing this with you.
cheers, darling.
So experience with abuse and healing. How did your experience in abuse relationship shape the person that you are today? And was there ever a specific moment that you realized that you helped start you start your journey towards a healing and releasing?
So yes, I actually started my journey. I recognized a pattern once I got married.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that in my marriage, I don't regret my marriage. You know what I'm saying? I want to say that. I don't regret my marriage at all because it taught me so many different things, like how to be patient,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I had no clue of. No, I was not standing in the patient line when God was handing out patience. Okay. That's not the line that I was standing in. Believe that. And so it taught me how to be patient, and it taught me how to be able to listen better and communicate and understand and actually see the bigger picture instead of just the small pic, in the bay window. And so that's when I started to learn how to release and how to start healing. Because but first I had to surrender. Let me just say that. I had to surrender because life wasn't going well until I did surrender. I was beating myself up and I kept I was going through relationship after relationship after relationship again, looking for somebody to save me, looking for somebody to just love me for me, because I felt like nobody in the world loved me. My grandmother did, but then when she passed, I lost all my mind. I lost everything. When she died, I died with her. And I just I just was gone. I literally had lost my mind and I just did not care. And I was on a suicide mission because I wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then I found myself in abusive relationship after abusive relationship. And it wasn't the fact that they were abusing me, it was the fact that I was abusing me. And I was allowing the things that they were doing to add to the abuse that I was already, that was already being placed upon me. Because I come from an abusive background, so that's all I know. And
Yeah.
a lot of times we don't understand that we have to break the cycle. We can't expect for somebody else to break the cycle because it'll never break.
Yep.
And once I learned that, once I made a decision to surrender for me, that's when I started to heal. And God said, okay, but let me tell you something. I was very stubborn because I am a very stubborn lady. I just really am. It's I can admit that as one of my flaws. I am very stubborn. And he basically just was like, okay, You don't want to do it? Let me show you how we doing this. And he dropped me in the forest. And when he dropped me in the forest, basically he was like, okay, now what you gonna do? How you gonna find your way out? And all I could do was listen to his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in that forest for months because I was being disobedient, because I was trying to do it my way. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. I'm gonna do it my way. Well, okay. Well, you just sit there. And I cried and I cried and I cried of many nights and of many days. And I was just on a hamster wheel, just, and I was trying to mask the pain so people wouldn't see my hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I was masking what I was feeling on the inside so people would think that I was just this strong individual. And inside, I was dying. I was dying and I was crying for help. And God said, can't nobody help you but me.
Yep.
Can't nobody help you but me.
Yep.
What you gonna do? And I fought it a little bit more and I fought it a little bit more until I got tired. And I remember that saying that my grandmother used to tell me, when you get tired, not just, oh, I'm tired. No, but when you get really tired and tired of being sick and tired, then you will really do something about it. And she just basically, I just heard her voice saying, what you gonna do, girl? Are you sick and tired? Or are you just talking about it? And when I made up my mind that I was sick and tired, I literally surrendered my life. And when I surrendered my life just started to change instantaneously. And it was shocking me because I was like, whoa, okay. And God said, I was waiting on you. You wasn't waiting on me. And that's our
Unfortunately,
problem.
yeah, unfortunately, learning that we only have ourselves to count on, it's something that we don't learn so soon in life.
Nope.
You have to fall many, 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 many times, and nobody's pick you up. And then you look back, well, I thought I fell like 15 times.
Exactly.
Nobody picked me up but myself. All right, it's just me. I only have me, myself to count on.
Hmm.
Yeah. Going back to the spiritual release that you do, can you explain what this spiritual release means and why you think it's so essential for people?
Well, first of all, you can't heal until you break,
Yeah.
which means that you can't heal until you really let everything go. So for me, I am the spiritual release coach, which means that I actually dig deep into the sticky stuff that everybody don't like to touch. We just like to throw the rug over it and pretend that it doesn't happen. Well, I realized that until you touch that sticky stuff, you ain't healed.
Yeah.
You just masking
You
and
gotta go.
playing and perpetrating, but you're not healing yourself. And until you dig deep and touch that, because a lot of times that is our underlying issue right there. It's the stuff we don't want to touch. And once I learned that, I started to heal. Once I started to acknowledge that I had these deeper traumas than the trauma that I'm just trying to, cover and mask, just this stuff I want to, I'm comfortable with talking about.
Mhm.
That stuff, I was okay. But once I started dig deep and deeper, and I started to bring up those old wounds and started to release and heal those wounds, I started to find my peace. I started to find my freedom. I started to I started to unlearn to relearn who I am.
Mhm.
And that's why it's essential, because you have to know who you are to love you unconditionally the way God loves you. And a lot of times we have no idea who we are. If somebody said, and a lot of times on these interviews, people ask, the first question they say is, well, introduce yourself. Who are you? Some people have to pause because they have to think about who they are. Some people give you this brief description because in reality, they really don't know who they are.
Uh-huh.
They have no idea of the person that they are.
It's so funny you say that because Every time I take a class or go anywhere, they're like, okay, let's all introduce ourselves. And I'm always like, I hate this. I don't want to talk.
Exactly.
It's like this anxiety. I'm like, I'm Ellie. I'm from Brazil. I don't know why I'm here, just like, because, right? You have this little anxiety, like, I don't want to talk about myself, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And what are some of the common types of spiritual baggage that you see in people, carrying? And how do these affect their lives?
Anger is the number one. Depression is another one, and anxiety. Those would be the top three that I see a lot.
Mhm.
Anger being the number one. And the reason why people stay so angry is because they haven't fixed what they're angry about. They
Which is
haven't
in the past,
acknowledged.
right?
Exactly. Uh-huh. You have to acknowledge what's happening in your past so you can fix it.
Hmm.
You know, if you're because that's what's causing you to be angry. It's a pattern. And we don't understand that we pick up these bad habits and bad patterns in our youth. And they just go on to our adult years. And then they get worse because we are forming this person that we think we are.
Yep.
And so this is why I have the release, the rebuild, and the rebranding stage. Because in the release stage, we're releasing all the garbage. We're releasing all the old baggage and the old narratives and the limited beliefs. We're releasing those. And then when you do that, you got to rebuild who you are, which means you got to know who you are. Who are you?
Yeah.
This is going to be the time that you actually get to learn how to love you. And once you learn how to love you, then you got to start rebranding who you are, which means that you got to start taking them unhealthy habits and turning them to healthy habits so that you can be your best form of you.
Yeah. And that takes work, and sometimes people just don't want to put on the work, right?
Exactly.
I hear.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's easier to be complacent and comfortable with who we are. But a
Oh,
lot of times we don't like the person that we are.
yeah. It was only a couple of years ago for me that I was able to um release some of my baggage, actually make peace with my past. I held
Mhm.
I'm 46, so it's sad for me to it's sad, but at the same time it's not, because I am free of this baggage that I had, but I had a lot of anger towards my past.
Mhm.
And one day I just had this real conversation with my mom. I forgave myself. I forgave her because a lot of my anger was the way I was brought up. But my
Exactly.
mom, she did what she thought it was best.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
took me a while to really understand that and take this blame out of her.
Exactly.
And this
Exactly.
just, how can I say, just renew completely my relationship with my mother. Today we have a wonderful relationship that I always dreamed to have with my mother and I didn't have. And that only started a couple of years ago, which I say sad because it took for me to be in my 40s to get to that point. But at the same time, at the least I did it. I did it, and we're here. I am free of, and
Exactly.
honestly, once I let go of all of this in the past, I became a happier person, and things just started happening for me in a positive way,
Mhm.
you know?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
you're angry at the whole, nothing's gonna happen because you are just pushing that bad energy out,
Energy.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. The energy you release is the energy that you obtain. And we
Exactly.
have to remember that, you
Yeah.
know. So if you give a negative and angry energy, what type of energy do you think you're gonna get
I
back?
I
You're
know
gonna get negative and angry energy.
that's why you
And
attract.
so yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. With the what was the most challenging part of your own healing journey?
Forgiveness.
That's the
Just
hardest
like
part.
everybody else, forgiveness. I didn't want to forgive him. I didn't feel like he deserved to be forgiven. But God told me, he looked at me, he said, what if I choose not to forgive you today?
Mhm.
Because one sin is no bigger or no less than the other sin.
Well, God
I look
says,
at it
love
all
the
the
sinner,
same.
not the sins, right?
Yeah, a sin is a sin, period. I don't
Exactly.
care if you lie or if you kill, it's the same in God's eye,
Exactly.
period. And so he said, what if I chose not to forgive you today? And I was like, wow. It made me think, like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on now, Pippin. Wait, you talking about you don't want to forgive me? Wait, and then I had to think. See, I started to stutter because I want to say, well, I ain't did nothing like that. But then when I look back on my life, I look at all the sin that I've done,
Mm-hmm.
all the sin that I do, because I fall short of the glory of God, period. And we all sin
Oh, yeah.
every day,
Every
you
day.
know, every day. And
I
so,
probably wake up sinning.
exactly, exactly. And so I had to be mindful of that. And then I realized that, guess what? I'm not forgiving him for him. Forgiving him for me. I'm forgiving him for me because I held on too long, for one. And I lost me for two. And now I just want to find me. And how do I do that? I got to forgive those who trespass against me because that's what he tells me to do in his basic instructions. And that's what I have to do. I have to forgive those who trespass against me. And it was not the easiest task. But
That's
once I did it, oh my God, just like you say you did with your mom. See, I did that too with my mom. You know what I'm saying? And of course, even though I did, she didn't want to admit to it and she didn't want to. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? And instead of her embracing it, she got angry and angrier and hateful with it. And so I had to say, okay, mama, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just walk away and I got to, I have to step to the side and I have to still do this because I love you, but I can't take that toxic anger and put it in my circle, in my realm. You know what I'm saying? Because those are my boundaries. And I only know that I don't want that in my circle because I found me. I learned me. I learned what I want, what I don't want, what I will accept, what I won't accept, how I will accept it, and how I will not accept it. You know what I'm saying? What
uh-huh.
I can't tolerate and what I can't tolerate. What are my deal breakers and what are my grades? You know what I'm saying? I know these things for me. And I'm still learning. But there's certain things that I know and I just don't, and I will remove myself. Don't mean that I don't love you.
Yeah.
It don't mean that I love you any less. It just means that now I have to love me too. And so I love me enough to just remove myself out of the situation. I don't have to bark at you. I don't have to hoop and holler and scream at you the way you're screaming at me. I can just say, okay, because I realize it's about how I respond to what you're talking about. And that was hard for me because if you start screaming at me, I'm sure fit to start screaming at you. If you start talking down to me, baby, I'm gonna let you see how this feels. I got to, you know what I'm saying? But now I just realized that why? Because I put more energy into giving you what you want than if I just walk away. I done save my energy and then just free myself. I'm good. You're the one who got to live with that anger,
Yeah.
not me. And so I had to learn how to forgive. That was the most challenging for me. But once I forgave and then I let go, because that was my last little piece of releasing, was that right there. And I had to forgive. See, I have forgave everybody else. I have fordid that, but I could not forgive that piece of me.
Yeah.
And I had to. And once I did, I started to elevate and elevate. And now I'm watching it just move up, and I'm just like, this is all for me?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I know.
because you were obedient.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. If only people knew that once you forgive yourself and forgive whatever it's around you, whether it's your parents or sibling or friend, this and that, you don't need to be with them, but just Forgive. If people only knew that feeling of release, to release that baggage that you're carrying,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
it is awesome. Yeah.
It's the best, baby. What they say, I will cheers to that, baby. That is
Cheers,
the
my
best
friend. That is
feeling
the best
ever.
feeling. That is the best feeling. And I only hope that more people would have that because, you know.
Exactly.
So, how did you discover your calling to help others release their spiritual baggage? Was there a moment that you experienced that clarified this path for you?
I didn't want this path. I did not choose this path. I
That's
did
what I
not want to.
always say. I
Yeah,
didn't
I didn't
choose
want
where
that.
I am today. God put me here somehow, and I'm just doing what I have to do.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. I just go with the flow, baby. I'm just a worker, okay, for God. Because no, I did not want to do this. I don't like people enough to be worried about your problems and stuff like that. Like, that's just being me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just was like, no, Lord, I don't want to do this. And I was fighting. And he was like, so you telling me you ain't going to bring my people to me? You telling me that you don't tell me no? What if I tell you no today? How about that? What if I decide that, you know what? Not today, Tivona. I'm not fooling with you today. What if I decide to do that? See, we don't put ourselves in that position because we think we too big. You know, we are that. We're entitled to some things. We shouldn't have to do these things and da. And then I felt like, why is you asking me? Because I'm not qualified and people not even fit to listen to me. See, I went there because I instantly brought up those limited beliefs that people had told me year after year after year after year that I was not good enough, that I was not worthy enough. That when I did my first book, people told me, you know what I'm saying? They told me, and this is it's funny because it comes from the people that I love the most, said that ain't nobody gonna read your story. Don't nobody want to hear your story. Don't nobody want to read your book. You know what I'm saying? And I instantly took those limited beliefs, like, Lord, why? Ain't nobody gonna want to listen to me. Ain't nobody gonna want to hear this story. Ain't nobody gonna, you know what I'm saying? I instantly went there and he was like, girl, shut up. Please, bye. Get to sit down. Just sit down and I got this. And I was like, okay. And then I just it was last year after going through all the stuff that I had been going through since COVID. I lost my best friend and my business partner in 2019 from a rare skin eating disease. And then I was going through all this stuff where I left my husband, I lost my dog, I lost two of my best friends. Like, baby, when I tell you life was lifing, it was lifing. And God said, well, what you gonna do? I, I groomed you for this. What you gonna do? So I just dust myself off and I just surrendered again
Get
and
up
said,
and
okay, God, you
keep on.
know what? Wherever you take me, wherever you send me, I'll go. And that's what I did. I just go where he tell me to go. And no matter the challenge, I just go.